Okay, welcome everyone to the deep dive. We've got some really interesting source material today, actually shared by you, our listener.
That's right.
And we are plunging right into a topic that's just, well, fundamental to power, to persuasion everywhere, but especially the language of politics in India.
Absolutely. And the analysis we're basing this on, it's titled Shabd Shakti, which, translates pretty directly to the power of words. And it really lays out how in Indian politics, words aren't just like background noise or simple communication. No, they are serious tools.
Tools, yeah, like weapons sometimes.
Sometimes weapons, sometimes building materials for crafting an image or a movement, and sometimes, yeah, almost like magic wands, conjuring feelings and reactions.
That's a great way to put it. So our mission here in this deep dive is to really unpack that. How does a fiery speech actually ignite a crowd?
Right. Or how does a simple slogan, just a few words, become this massive nationwide movement?
And we see it all the time now, how a single tweet can cause a political earthquake, or how these subtle code words are used pretty deliberately to target certain groups.
Because the core point from Shabd Shakti is clear. In the, let's say, unique arena of Indian politics, language isn't secondary. It's not an afterthought.
Yeah.
It's a primary instrument. It's absolutely central to the constant ongoing struggle to gain power, to hold on to it, and of course, to challenge it. So yeah, let's dig into how this power actually works.
Okay, so let's start there. Language as a weapon. The source material really hammers this point home. How does it describe that function?
Well, one of the main ways, according to this analysis, is by directly playing on emotions. Really deep-seated ones.
Okay.
The source points out specific keywords that just resonate incredibly strongly. Think about poverty kineti or insult kineti.
Yeah, those are powerful.
Self-respect akmanam mathaje. National pride because point. Ad spending. These aren't just abstract ideas, right? They connect to real feelings, lived experiences, collective memories.
That makes total sense. You can see it historically, can't you?
Yeah.
Like Indira Gandhi's Garibi Hatao, remove poverty. It was a direct hit on the economic anxieties of millions.
Exactly.
Or maybe more recently, something like Sabka Saath, as Sabka Vikas. Collective efforts, inclusive growth. It's aiming for that feeling of unity, shared dreams.
It's trying to connect on that very basic, very human level, tapping into hopes and fears.
Right.
And another key technique, this source details, how language is used to, well, frame the opponent, to build them up, or more often, tear them down.
Ah, the labeling game.
Precisely. Labels are chosen very, very carefully, strategically. Terms like traitor, anhezer, corrupt,
Corrupted minority. Appeasement.
food cop. No, food cop. We hear that a lot.
Or dynastic Sandal Badraj. These aren't neutral descriptions, are they? They're loaded. They're designed to undermine, to create suspicion, to basically define the other in negative terms.
And then sort of the flip side of that coin, language is also crucial for building hope, yeah. Painting that attractive picture of what could be.
Definitely. Creating that vision people want to buy into. Phrases like good days, Dio Day, or New India in the weather.
Or that double-engine government idea.
The implication being, same party at state and center means smooth sailing, faster progress.
Exactly. It's all about creating connection and making promises, even implicitly.
And what's really striking, and the analysis points this out, is that the effectiveness often comes from its directness, its simplicity.
Yes. That's key. It's not usually complex academic language. It's direct, emotional. It goes straight for the gut, for the heart.
Which makes it incredibly potent across such a diverse country like India, right? It cuts through.
That's its strength, according to the source. Its accessibility. Okay, that idea of simplicity and impact, it leads us right into political slogans, doesn't it? Shabd Shakti argues these little phrases can literally shape history in India.
Oh, absolutely. They're like these super concentrated bursts of political messaging, easy to grab onto, easy to repeat. The source brings up some classics. Lal Bahadur Shastri's Jai Jawan, Jai Kisan, Hail the Soldier, Hail the Farmer. That united the country around these two sort of foundational figures during tough times.
Yeah, iconic. Or think about the JP movement, the counter slogan, Indira Hatao, Desh Bachao, remove Indira, save the country. That framed political opposition itself as a kind of patriotic act.
A very powerful framing. And then in the 90s, you had Mandal Kamandal, Just 2 words, but they captured this huge political clash, didn't they?
They really did. The whole
Yeah.
conflict between caste reservations Mandal and the rise of religious identity politics Commandal.
So succinct. The source even notes how, rhyme and maybe a bit of humor can play a role. It mentions a Congress slogan from the 80s, Abki Bari, Abki Barari, Kiji Dobara Tayari. It's catchy.
It is catchy. And more recently, well, Apki Bar, Modi Sarkar, this time Modi government. Simple, direct, very effective.
Or remember, Main Be Chowkidar. I am also a watchman. That was an interesting one, taking a criticism and trying to turn it into a badge of honor, a collective thing.
Yeah, flipping the script. So what is it then, according to the analysis, that gives these slogans such immense power, enough to actually mobilize millions?
Well, it comes down to a few things.
Yeah.
They're short, they stick in your head, and crucially, they forge that direct emotional link we talked about.
Right.
They create a sense of shared identity, like we're the people who believe this, or they define a common enemy, a common opposition. And that feeling of us or us against them is incredibly potent for getting people involved.
Okay, but the places where these words fight it out, that's changed massively, hasn't it? We've gone from, long speeches being the main thing to what Shakti called the soundbite war.
That's a really crucial shift the source highlights. Political communication now, it's not just about laying out a detailed argument, it's about grabbing attention, like instantly.
In this incredibly noisy media world.
Exactly. And you see this vividly on TV debates, right? The source calls them showdowns.
Yeah, that fits.
And they often involve, let's be honest, pretty aggressive language. People shouting, interrupting constantly, politicians just repeating the same simple, often emotional points again and again.
Like hammering a single message. The source mentioned the example of repeating something like, what did the Modi government give to farmers? Over and over.
Yes, that kind of relentless repetition. And then, of course, came social media. Twitter, Facebook. Game changers.
Totally.
Leaders can now talk directly, completely unfiltered to the public. And the source notes that these platforms are just dripping with emotion, aren't they?
Oh, yeah. Anger, pride, goodwill. It's all there. Quick attacks, announcements, stuff designed to go viral, memes.
Exactly. And this is where terms like troll army really took root in that kind of environment.
So what's the main takeaway from the analysis about this shift? What's the big consequence?
Speed and the unfiltered nature of it all. A controversial comment. A powerful clip from a speech, it can now spread like wildfire across the entire country in minutes.
Before anyone can even properly react or fact check sometimes?
Precisely. For better or worse, the language is immediate, it's often raw, and its impact can be national, almost instantaneous.
Okay, let's go a bit deeper now. The source material also talks about the less obvious ways language works, the hidden power, maybe, through symbols, dog whistles, code words.
Right. This is where the meaning isn't always explicit, but it carries enormous weight. Think about certain terms.
Like what?
Like Ram Mandir or Martyrs of Independence.
Yeah,
Even the word Constitution, Big Goko. Or, as the source points out, even colors like saffron or green kiko.
These aren't just words or colors, are they?
Not at all. They evoke entire histories, ideologies, religious feelings, deep emotional connections for different groups. They're loaded symbols.
And that connects to this idea of dog whistle politics, right? Can you unpack that based on the source?
Yeah, the source defines it as using words or phrases that sound pretty normal, maybe even patriotic or just general to most people.
Okay.
But for a specific target audience, they carry a very particular, often coded message. It's a message they understand loud and clear, while others might just miss it or hear something else entirely.
Can you give some examples from the source?
Sure. It mentions phrases like son of the soil, widow here, or cultural identity. Cultural identity, if you called, even termed like infiltrators. Willift. The analysis even suggests that how something like Bharat Mata Ki Jai, victory for Mother India, is used. The emphasis, the context, can function as a dog whistle.
So for the intended group, it signals something specific.
Yeah, it might confirm shared grievances, reinforce identity, signal who's in and who's out, or target a specific group for opposition, while outsiders just hear, general political talk.
The source also links this to narratives of victimhood, doesn't it? And aggressive nationalism.
Absolutely. Statements like, our religion is in danger, our culture is under attack, our community is threatened. These are designed to generate fear, a sense of urgency, and mobilize support for protection.
And labeling opponents traitors, name-calling. According to the analysis, it's a tactic. It questions their basic loyalty to the nation, aiming to delegitimize them completely, to shut down dissent.
So what's the real power of these code words or dog whistles, according to Shakti?
It's their ambiguity, their plausible deniability. The speaker can always say, oh, that's not what I meant, if they're challenged. But the intended effect on the target group, it lands, it does its political work, even while being deniable on the surface. It's quite sophisticated, in a way.
That's fascinating and maybe a bit chilling. Now, finally, Shakti talks about something really unique to India, how the actual choice of language is itself a massive political statement.
Yeah, this is huge in India, given the incredible linguistic diversity. Which language a leader chooses to speak in and when is a major strategic move.
So, Hindi, for example.
Well, Hindi is often seen as essential, right, for reaching the vast Hindi-speaking belt, for having national ambitions, for connecting with central power structures.
But as the source notes, just using Hindi everywhere doesn't always work, does it?
No, definitely not. It can actually create friction, even opposition, in parts of the South or the Northeast, where regional languages are incredibly important, deeply tied to identity, culture, and pride.
Which is why those regional languages themselves become such powerful political tools for local leaders.
Exactly. When leaders like Mamata Banerjee speaks Bengali, or M.K. Stalin speaks Tamil, or K.C.R. speaks Telugu, or Uddhav Thackeray speaks Marathi.
They're connecting on a much deeper level, aren't they?
Absolutely. It signals authenticity, solidarity with local culture, local pride, local history. It says, I am one of you.
And what about English? What role does the source say it plays?
English is often the language for connecting with, say, the urban elite, international audiences, maybe the corporate world, certain segments of voters.
But it carries its own baggage too, right? Sometimes seen as the language of the elite.
Yes, it has that perception, and that perception itself is political. It signals certain things, connects with some, maybe distances from others.
So a truly successful national leader in India needs to be pretty adept at juggling these, right?
They really do. They have to navigate this complex linguistic map constantly, knowing when to use Hindi, when to use a regional language, when to use English, understanding that the choice itself sends a powerful political message. The medium really is part of the message in India.
Wow. Okay, we've covered a lot of ground here, really digging into this Shakti analysis. And the main takeaway seems crystal clear. Words in Indian politics are, well, they're definitely not just words.
Not even close. They are, as the analysis shows, active forces.
Yeah.
They're weapons, they're building blocks, and sometimes they have this almost hidden magical quality to move people, to shape how things unfold.
And really understanding that power is crucial if you want to make sense of the political scene, isn't it?
Absolutely essential.
So the next time you're listening to a speech, reading a slogan, scrolling through social media, maybe use some of these ideas from our deep dive to look, a bit more closely.
Yeah, ask yourself some questions like, what specific emotion is this politician trying to evoke right now? Is it anger, fear, pride, hope? What are they aiming for?
And who are they talking to? Who is the intended audience here? And just as importantly, who is being left out? Or maybe even being positioned as the other?
Could there be something hidden in the words? A subtext. A dog whistle aimed at a particular group that maybe isn't obvious at first glance.
And think about the language itself. Why Hindi now? Why English here? Why this regional language in this context? What does that choice signal about their strategy, about who they're trying to be?
Because getting underneath the surface of these words, understanding their layers of meaning and their intended impact, that's really fundamental to understanding modern politics in India.
It really is.
Yeah.
So a final thought maybe to leave you with, building on all this, thinking about recent campaigns or political debates you've seen. What's one example of this Shakti, this power of words, that really stands out to you now?
That's a great question to mull over. It makes you listen differently.
It definitely does. Well, thank you for joining us for this deep dive into the power of political language in India, guided by the insights from Shakti. We really hope this gives you a new lens, maybe a more critical one, for observing the political conversation.